My name is Mallory Cooper. I'm here to discuss something that a lot of people, have been wondering, like how to handle negative feedback, especially when you're in a online community. Um, it's kind of been an interesting conversation because you first of all have to understand that negative feedback is definitely inevitable. The good news is it doesn't have to be destructive. And in fact, it can be well handled in your community. So I want to talk to you about how to handle negative feedback like a pro. So step one, shift your mindset. Now, what does it mean by to shift your mindset? Sometimes when you see a negative comment, the first thing you have to remember is, don't take it very personally. You just have to sit back and ask yourself, like take a pause and say, is this something useful? I want you to think about it like this. Feedback is data, and you could use that data. So consider it as feedback as data and don't take it as a personal attack. Step two, listen before you respond. And this is what I mean by that. So you have a user that, makes a comment like, this event was a mess. And you as a moderator, you're kind of wondering like, where is this coming from? So how you approach it would be something like you would say something along the lines of what like this moderator is saying. Thanks for the feedback. Can you tell me what didn't work for you? When you do that sort of thing, the first thing that you're doing is that you're trying to diffuse the situation. And most importantly, it opens up, the dialogue and it makes it more constructive dialogue. And because everybody, of course, wants to feel heard. And so gives, people more of an opportunity to open up and share ideas. How to separate toxicity from truth. So here's an example of one type of feedback that's, it's definitely, definitely valuable feedback, right? I think the rules are unclear. And here's an example of toxic feedback. The server sucks and the mods are clueless. Now, you're probably wondering like, okay, how does that, you see what I mean? So there's two different sides. There's one side where they're giving you very constructive feedback. The other side is just sort of like venting frustration. And so how do you do that? Well, first of all, everybody wants to be heard. You have to acknowledge the concern. And, of course, you have to be able to decipher if this is, something that, needs to be handled in a sensitive manner, right? Sometimes you want to make sure that when you're creating your environment is that, not making sure that abuse is not happening. So the first thing you should always do is to make sure that you set boundaries with the community. And if you have to use, moderation tools to protect your space, it's recommended that you do so. You still want everybody to be heard, but you want to make sure that there is no type of abuse going on in your community to protect everyone. Now, step four, respond with transparency. understand that with every online community that you're dealing with, feedback is valid because again, you're creating a space where everyone's feeling comfortable. And here's an example of something that would definitely create a positive environment for that online community, especially when somebody is giving feedback. We hear you, and we're updating the event guidelines, and we'll test the new format next week. So, in other words, you're letting people know, like, hey, look, we're hearing you. We're going to, try our best to fix the situation. We're going to test it out. And you give a reasonable timeline of next week. And here's sort of a pro tip: people respect honesty more than perfection because it builds trust and it shows your community and your community alone, right? That there is voice matters, right? So their voices are being heard, and it builds definitely a rapport, it builds trust, and it keeps everybody um, feeling safe in that community. Step five, of course, use feedback to grow. Now, with any community, it's always recommended that you have some sort of negative feedback, some type of engine, okay? And what do I mean by an engine? In this engine, you are tracking patterns to see what's going on, what's working, and what's not. You're creating polls. And of course, you are always inviting people to make any suggestions. And it does create, once again, a community where everybody feels a part of the community culture. So, in this engine, the objective is to take the feedback, get some insight from that feedback, and create some sort of action plan. And within that action plan, you build a stronger community. And that's what you want to happen in your online community. So here's some, final food for thought, right? Take that harsh criticism and turn it into something powerful where everyone can learn from it. As a moderator, you have to think about it like this: you are the lead. And being the lead is somebody that is not only very sympathetic, but they have clarity. They understand the situation, they understand what's going on, and they understand that there's criticism that comes with building an online community. So always make sure that you are present, you are responsive, and you're trying to make sure that this community, where everybody's voices are being heard, but you're also using the feedback tools of receiving the feedback, getting some insight, creating an excellent um, reaction plan, like I had mentioned before in the example of letting everybody know that there will be a time frame of next week to make sure that things are working in that instance. And above all, this will create where everybody feels a part of that community culture. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Take care. Bye bye.